Good morning and welcome to Daily Red Devil for all of your latest Manchester United transfer news and talk. And as always, we're back with another massive show to bring you all this morning. But before we jump into that, please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel if you are new. We are on the road to 20k subscribers. We're only about 200 away, so please do subscribe and let's get straight on into the show. So the main talking point today is going to be the story coming out that apparently the Qataris have put in their final offer for Manchester United. We'll also be talking a little bit about Sir Jim Ratcliffe's new offer as well and where we're at with everything in relation to the takeover. We will talk about that. We'll also, of course, talk about the game tomorrow against... who's the game tomorrow against? Brentford. My brain's only just switched on. I do apologise. The game tomorrow against Brentford. We'll be talking about that. We'll also be doing a bit of a deep dive into Manchester United's stats this season so far and comparing it with how the other teams are doing and all the rest of it, just to give us a bit more of an idea of how we're actually performing by way of the stats. Do the stats meet the results? We will talk about that. Yeah, a couple of other bits to get into, but let's get straight on into it. So I just wanted to first of all start off by bringing something into the show that Zlatan Ibrahimovic had said in an interview with Piers Morgan. So if anybody's unaware, Zlatan's done another one of these Cristiano Ronaldo type Piers Morgan uncensored style interviews. I don't know. I'm not that bothered about Zlatan Ibrahimovic, to be honest. I think he was okay when he came to Manchester United. Was he here 1 season, 2 seasons? Obviously, he's a great player. Maybe not a great player for Manchester United, but as a footballer, obviously he has a legacy and he is, an icon of kind of my generation of football fans. So he's been talking about the Glazers, Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Zlatan has said the following. He says, "I think now at Manchester United there are some kind of demonstrations about the owners to sell, but just a reminder, the owners are investing." He then goes on to say, "It's not like they are not investing because they brought in many players for a high amount of money. I think it's a little bit wrong saying that they're not doing what the fans expect them to do. I don't know what the real reason is behind everything." I mean, it's an absolute... Why do you talk about things if you don't understand it? To put the word, the Glazers are investing in Manchester United in a sentence just doesn't make any sense, does it? Because we know for a fact that the Glazers aren't investing. They haven't spent any of their own money. Investing our own profits, that isn't investing, is it? It's not the same conversation. Investing is Todd Bowley coming into Chelsea and spending $1 billion in one year out of his own pocket, from his investors, from his the people who've got stakes in Chelsea, spending $1 billion. That's investing. Investing is coming in and building a new stadium out of their own money. Investing isn't spending our profits on players. That's not investing. So I think Zlatan Ibrahimovic has got it completely wrong here, but let me know what you guys think about that. I just don't really know why people bother to talk if they don't actually understand what they're talking about. It's a little bit strange. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Let's see what people are saying in the chat this morning. Hope everyone is doing good. Paul says, "The Glazers are destroying our club and we can't do anything about it. I hate them." Yeah, I hear you. What else we got? Araf says, "He doesn't understand the club or what we're complaining about. He's an absolute muppet." Yeah, I agree. And Saf says he's looking for a job. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about that one. I think Zlatan's just got it completely wrong here. It's very embarrassing. Very, very embarrassing, okay? Right, let's move on to something else, though. Let's talk a little bit about this story that's come out from The Times. This came out on Thursday, October the 5th at 7:45 p.m. for people in the chat saying this is old. It's not old, it's new. It's a new article that's come out about 10 hours ago. So that's where the source is. And the headline is... From today, this has been confirmed as of today, the Qataris will not increase their £5 billion Manchester United offer despite Sir Jim Ratcliffe's recent offer. So they are confirming that Sir Jim Ratcliffe has put in a new bid. Obviously, there was talk about this over the last couple of days. There was people mentioning it. But it does now look like Sir Jim Ratcliffe has submitted this new bid for Manchester United, which we will talk about now. So the story then goes on to say that the Glazer family are now considering British billionaire's offer. So obviously Sir Jim Ratcliffe. And his offer is apparently £1.5 billion for a 25% stake in the club. So he's looking to buy a quarter of Manchester United, which would leave the Glazers. The Glazers currently own 69%. So the Glazers would approximately have... The Glazers would still own 44%, which means they'd be still the majority owners of Manchester United. You'd have 25% going to Ineos, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, 44% owned by the Glazers, and 31% owned on the New York Stock Exchange. So we'd have 3 different entities owning Manchester United, with the Glazers still being the majority shareholders, which is, I mean, it's absolutely crazy that any any supposed Manchester United fan, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, would think that the fans would be happy with this. The story then goes on to say the QATAR group bidding for Manchester United will not increase their existing offer of £5 billion, despite the new deal being tabled by Sir Jim Ratcliffe. This week, it emerged that the Glazers are now considering Ratcliffe's offer of £1.5 billion for a 25% stake as part of what could be a staged takeover at Old Trafford. One insider close to the process has described the British billionaire's proposal as feasible. Now, the staged takeover bit of this, so people are probably wondering what that means, is apparently Sir Jim Ratcliffe is saying that he will buy all of the club by 2026, 2027, right? He'll buy 25% now, and over the next 3 or 4 years, he'll keep trying to buy more bits of it off the Glazers until he eventually owns all of their 69%. I just think he's deluded. Why would the Glazers sell, if they don't want to sell now, right? If they don't want to sell 100% of what they own now, why are they going to sell it in a year's time? Why would they sell it in 2 years' time? It makes absolutely zero sense to me, and I think it's just a load of rubbish. But let me know what you guys think about that one. It's just very frustrating, isn't it? It really, really is. I think obviously £5 billion on the table for 100% of the club is a good deal. You know, it's a good deal for them. But when somebody like Sir Jim Ratcliffe is now offering them £1.5 billion for 25%, if you actually work out the maths, he's valuing the club at $6 billion then, isn't he? And they're still getting to stay as majority shareholders. So for them, they get £1.5 billion in their pocket. Imagine that, right? They've put no money. I think they bought the club for what, 400 million, I think it was. They bought the club for 400 million, which was all debt that they took from a bank, leveraged against United. They've sold off bits along the way to the New York Stock Exchange, and now they potentially get £1.5 billion cash for them to do whatever they want with. That's about what, 250 million per Glazer, per, you know, the 6 Glazers, 250 million each, and they still would own nearly 45% of the club and still be the majority shareholders. They'd still be able to take dividends if they wanted to. It's absolutely mad. And I just don't understand how the Glazers, sorry, not the Glazers, yeah, well, and the Glazers and Sir Jim Ratcliffe could think that this would be acceptable for the Manchester United fans. We're in 13th place. The club's in an absolute shambles. How on earth does anybody think that bringing in Sir Jim Ratcliffe with 25% of the club is going to get us anywhere? It's going to set us backwards. I promise you, we will go backwards under this, because why would Sir Jim Ratcliffe invest loads of his own money, right? Say he buys this 25% stake. Why would he then say, okay, here's 2 billion for the stadium and all the rest of it? Why would he do that? Because he only owns a quarter of the club. Surely the Glazers, he'd say, okay, well, if I'm going to put in some money, then the Glazers need to put in some money. And they're never going to do that. So I just don't understand how in any world this could work. It just makes zero sense to me. Obviously, there is still the threat of the investors, the 31% of people suing the Glazers and Sir Jim Ratcliffe if this deal does go through, because ultimately they want the opportunity to sell their stake. They want to sell their stake to Sheikh Jassim for the inflated price. It's an absolute mess, really. And if the Glazers do accept this, then I don't know where we go from here. Midas says it's a smart deal by the Glazers. I mean, it is, yeah. I mean, if we're looking at this from a non-Manchester United perspective, right? If you take away your love for the club, this is a great deal for the Glazers. It is. It's an absolutely incredible deal. They're getting $1 billion more than what Sheikh Jassim's offering if you value the whole club, right? So they'd be getting $6 billion technically. They still get to stay. They could still take dividends. They still have the ego of owning the biggest club in world football and all the rest of it. Like, it's an incredible deal for the Glazers. And I just don't see how Sheikh Jassim's now going to be able to come in and beat that if he's not willing to offer any more money. You know, it's all good and well him saying it's a take it or leave it offer. I mean, if I'm the Glazers, I'm sat there saying, so somebody's offered the club at more money than what it's actually worth. You know, Sir Jim's valuing it at $6 billion. He only wants to take 25%, and he's going to give us $1.5 billion up front. I mean, like, it's a no-brainer. I don't see why they would take Sheikh Jassim's offer now, to be honest. I'm just being completely blunt this morning. And you know what? Just, we can obviously pray. We can hope that things will change. I know there's a couple of people in the chat who want Sir Jim Ratcliffe, but I just can't understand on any level how what Sir Jim Ratcliffe is offering, this 25% thing, is good for the club. If he was buying 100% of the club, maybe that would be a good thing for Manchester United. Maybe he'd be better than the Glazers, although I don't think there's any guarantee even if he was buying 100%. But for him to own 25, the Glazers to own 44, and then for 31 to still be on the New York Stock Exchange, how in anybody's brain can that be a good thing for Manchester United? I just don't get it. I really, really don't. And it is troubling. Obviously, I hope that something changes, but just the thought does make me worried. Obviously, I'll always support Manchester United, but I don't know where we go from as a fan perspective from there if that happens. To be completely honest, like it's going to be very, very difficult to continue. I don't know. I'm not going to ever stop supporting Manchester United, but it's going to definitely tarnish like our relationship with the club, isn't it? Let's see what people are saying in the chat quickly. Matrix says it's not a good deal in the long run. Why would you say that? Yeah. Wardy says it's a PR stunt. It would never happen. Why would it never happen though? I think what's being offered now seems way more realistic. The Glazers get to keep the majority shareholders. They get to stay, and they get $1.5 billion in cash. I mean, it's pretty great, isn't it? David Porter says, what about the Glazer siblings other than Joel and Avram? What would they get? I can't remember what the exact breakdown is. I can have a look for you quickly. Glazer family ownership. Okay, so right, let's have a quick look for you. Somebody's asked about what percentages each of the Glazer owns. I have seen it before. I think it's I think Darcy, one of the ones we don't really ever hear from, owns quite a lot of the club, I think. I'm going to find that for you in a minute. I'll come back to that in a minute. I'm going to read out a couple more chats. Let's see what else people are saying. Carlos says, remember the other four want Qatar cash. So, yeah, I guess that's one thing to consider, right, is the Qatari bid does mean more money now. It depends what the Glazers want. Do they want more money now, or do they want cash now, or do they want to wait with the potential that the price will go up? That's the question, because I know that the splits are different between the 6 Glazers, but let's just say for argument's sake that it was all, you know, equal, and they split it divided by 6, right? Because there's 6 of them. So say they split this 1.5 billion by 6. Let's have a look how much they would get. They would get around 250 million each now. So if they sold 25% to Sheikh Jassim, if their splits were all equal, they'd get around 250 million per Glazer now. Whereas obviously if they sell the club for 5 billion, I mean, if that 5 billion includes the debt though as well, like I just don't see how Sheikh Jassim's going to win, to be honest. Like if he's offered 5 billion including the debt, right? The debt's 1 billion and they only own 69% of the club, right? I'm just working this out for you really quickly. I'm quite interested in maths and stuff. So I've just worked it out for you really, really quickly, okay? Let me explain this to you. Let me break it down to you. So Sheikh Jassim's offered 5 billion. We think that's including the debt, right? So really it's 4 billion. So you get the 4 billion, you divide it by 100, times it by 69%. That's how much the Glazers own. And then you divide that by 6, okay? So the total amount of money that each Glazer sibling would get now if they sold the club to Sheikh Jassim in full would be around 450 million, right? Whereas if they sell a quarter of the club to Sergeant Ratcliffe, they get 250 million. So it's not actually a massive amount of difference in money, really. It's about 200 million difference per Glazer because as I've said, Sheikh Jassim's valuing the club at 5 billion, including the debt, whereas Sergeant Ratcliffe's valuing the club at 6 billion, not including the debt. Do you see what I mean? So there's actually quite a big difference. There's about a 1 or 2 billion difference in what the two people are valued at. So it makes it a little bit confusing. Benedict says, I think it's 5 billion plus extra 1 billion for the debt. I mean, if that's the case, obviously that changes things quite considerably, but okay, cool. Everybody's saying it's not including the debt. All right, that's fine then. So it would be a little bit more, probably be more like around 600 or 700 million pounds each Glazer sibling would get if they sold to Sheikh Jassim now, versus if they sell to Sergeant Ratcliffe, they'll get about 250 million. So it's a big difference. It's about 3 times the amount of money. And the question is, do the Glazers want to stay around? Do they have the bite? Do they have the drive to be able to weather the storm, if you like, with the hope that in the future the club will be worth money? There's no hope. Imagine if Manchester United get worse, which could happen under new owners. It genuinely could. If we bring in Sergeant Ratcliffe, we could just be a mid-table side for the next 2 or 3 seasons. I would not be surprised at all. And at that point, the club's value is going to go down, isn't it? But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Let's read out a couple of your comments. Let's have a look. Gabriel says the Glazers would need at least 4 billion to fix the stadium and the rest. They won't get that from Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? It's where do they get the money to do all the things that need to happen at Manchester United, you know, to update Carrington, to either build a new stadium or to repair Old Trafford, you know, to invest more in the team and all the rest of it. They don't have the money to do that, do they? We were having to scrape around the back of the sofa to find the money to Sofian Amrabat, which was embarrassing. Everyone who's just joined the last couple of minutes, please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe. As you all know, we are on the road to 20k subscribers. We're now only 30 subscribers away from 19,800. So please do go and subscribe, and let's see if we can hit that by the end of today's video. Let's see what else people are saying in the chat. Anthony says, even after appointing a director of football, will the Glazers approve signings? Will they invest or wait? Ratcliffe to invest. Hope Qatar take full control. Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? There's all these question marks. Benedict says, will the Glazers invest the 1.5 billion from Sir Jim Ratcliffe on United? I mean, that's a really, really good question. And I mean, if they were to do that, I still don't want it to happen, but it's a completely different matter, isn't it? If they were going to spend all of that 1.5 billion on things, I mean, imagine this, right? I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here, right? I'm trying to give both sides of the coin. Imagine if they take the 1.5 billion from Sir Jim Ratcliffe, they clear the debt, and then they spend the rest of the money on Carrington and the playing squad. I still would think that's not okay, but it would be a little bit better, wouldn't it? It all just completely depends, doesn't it? Mila says, Sir Jim Ratcliffe is a childhood supporter of Manchester United. Perhaps he wants to get us where we belong. What experience has Sheikh Jassim with football clubs? I get that whole bit, and I think what you're saying is pretty much what we've been hearing in the media for the last 9 months, that he's a boyhood Manchester United fan, and that gives him some entitled right to be the Manchester United owner. I don't think so personally, and I think that you saying he wants to get us where we belong, does he genuinely think that keeping the Glazers is going to get us where we belong? That's the bit that doesn't make sense. If this question was Sir Jim Ratcliffe buying 100% versus Sheikh Jassim buying 100%, I would get the argument that maybe it's better to go with Sir Jim Ratcliffe because he's got some experience with, you know, football teams. He's obviously got a very successful cycling team and all the rest of it. Maybe we go with him. He's, you know, a local lad, all the rest of it. He wants to take us back to where we are, but that's not what he's offering. So it's not really comparable, I don't think. And I just don't really see how we can put Sir Jim Ratcliffe wanting to get us where we are in the same sentence, because I just don't see that from what he's offering. Araf says Glazers are too greedy to invest the money in the club. They would take it all out. Yeah, they're definitely going to take it all out, of course. Of course they will. Why would they have bothered with this whole process? Because the thing you have to remember as well, right, just to look at it from a boring perspective, is they've employed this Rain Group. They'll have solicitors, they'll have advisors, they'll have all of these people that are being paid. I mean, to be honest with you, thinking about it, Manchester United are probably paying for all of this stuff, aren't they? Manchester United are probably paying for the Rain Group. They're probably paying for all of the solicitors and all the legal stuff. So the Glazers are probably actually spending, again, none of their own money in any of this process. They're just spending our money. So I was going to make a point saying, you know, the Glazers have probably invested loads of money in solicitors and legal fees and all the rest of the stuff, but they probably just used our money. So they probably don't actually care, do they? If like, you know, it didn't happen or whatever. Pete says Ratcliffe has been rubbish at Nice. Yeah, that's fair. He has been. He has been. Brian says Sir Jim Ratcliffe is a season ticket holder at Chelsea. Yeah, he is. I know. That's the thing. I just think it all just contradicts itself a little bit. And the thing, as I've said to you guys many, many times on this show before, I know the face of this bid is Sir Jim Ratcliffe, but it's not Sir Jim Ratcliffe buying the club. It's Ineos. There's 2 other equal owners of Ineos. I can't remember their names, but Ineos is not just Sir Jim Ratcliffe. There's 3 people who own Ineos. Then there's all the shareholders, the stakeholders, all the other people who have money invested in it and all the rest of it. So it's not as simple as one person is buying Manchester United. It's a company that one person has been put at the face of it just for PR reasons because he was born in Manchester. That's pretty much the black and white of it, isn't it? Mila says Nice are 1 point behind Monaco and in front of PSG. Yeah, but we're only like 10 games into the season. I don't think you can really judge. I mean, like, look at the Premier League season. The Premier League tape. I mean, Monaco, Brest are second in the league. PSG will win that league. I'm sure of it. They will. They'll go on like a 20-game run. I mean, look at the table at the moment. Aston Villa, Brighton, West Ham, like all of those teams are very high up. Do you think that'll be the case at the end of the season? Maybe it will, but I think we're only 6 or 7 games into a season. We can't say Sir Jim Ratcliffe's doing a great job at Nice because they're 4th in the table 7 games into a season when they finished, like last season they finished Where did they finish last season? They finished 9th last season, so no Europe. The season before that, they finished 5th, so they got Europa League. The season before that, they finished... where did they finish the season before that? They finished 9th the season before that as well. Yeah, so they're pretty much a mid-table team, Nice. And is that really what we aspire to have? You could argue, though, that, you know, Sheikh Jassim hasn't had any experience with a football club, so maybe it's better to have Sergeant Ratcliffe, who at least has some experience. I don't know. There's all different types of arguments you could get. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just an opinion. Yeah, we've got someone saying Glazer's out and Eric Ten Hag out. I agree with the first bit, but I don't agree with Eric Ten Hag out personally, but obviously that's up to you. Right, let's move on to something else, though. Let's talk a little bit about players that we are looking at. There's a bit of a story coming in around a midfielder in January. Now, I guess that this story's just come out because Eric Ten Hag's Dutch, I guess. And the story's coming out from Graham Bailey in the UK this morning, saying that Manchester United are closely monitoring Feyenoord midfielder Quinten Timber, the twin brother of Arsenal defender Jurrien Timber. Now, we definitely need a midfielder, that's for sure. He isn't somebody I've heard of, to be honest. Like, anybody heard of him, Quinten Timber? I've not personally heard of him. Obviously, he's Jurrien Timber's brother. He's a centre attacking midfielder. I don't know. I've kind of gone past the point of caring with like January transfers at the moment. I just think it's a little bit far-fetched. Let's see what else people are saying in the chat. Benedict says, will Sergeant Ratcliffe be comfortable to pay 1.5 billion for just 25% without a future guarantee? Isn't that a loss? Well, the hope is, right? The hope is that the club will be worth more money in the future. That's what they're hoping. So the 1.5 they invest now, they hope in 10 years' time will be worth 2 billion. That's the reason why, you know, that they put in these types of offers, is because they want to get a piece of it. It's just an investment. That's the thing you have to remember here, right? Sergeant Ratcliffe's deal is an investment for his company. That's all it is. It's not what's going to be best for Manchester United. Sheikh Jassim, from my understanding of it, has a blank checkbook, wants to come in, wants to put the football first. And if you put the football first and you put all of those things in the right order, it will end up being worth more money in the long run, right? But if you come at it from a Sergeant Ratcliffe perspective, where you don't have the money to do it, you don't have the resources, or you're not willing to spend them, right? How would you expect it to then be worth more money in the future? Do you know what I mean? It's like buying a house, right? It's like buying a house that's completely run down and being like, right, if I did this house up, it would be worth £100,000 more, okay? Which does happen a lot. You know, people in the UK buy houses for cheap, do them up and sell them for more. It's like me going and buying this house that's £100,000 and the estate agent says, if you did some work to this house, it'll be worth £200,000, right? Instead of doing any work to it, I buy it, and then a month later I list it for 200,000 and I say, oh, well, it could be worth 200,000, so I'm going to sell it for 200,000. That's what Sergeant Ratcliffe's doing. He's not actually willing to invest any of his own money into the stadium, into clearing the debt, into all the rest of it. He's just going to come in, invest it, hold on to it, and hope that it increases in value. That's how I see it anyway. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Mila says all the top 10 clubs in the Premier League are at the moment better than Manchester United. Don't see how we can beat Aston Villa, West Ham or Newcastle. I agree, but I mean, all of those teams have been good. Newcastle are obviously not until a year or two ago, but Aston Villa have got an unbelievable team. West Ham have got a good team. Yeah. Noel says how many managers have to get sacked before you start looking at players and the board? I actually think, you know what, that the club are actually now looking at the players and at the board, I think. Because the fact that they're backing Eric Ten Hag is really, really good, because they are trying to break this cycle, it seems. They're trying to break this, sack the manager, the players turn against the manager, sack him, the manager has a good season, the next season's a struggle, sack the manager, start again. It's just the same thing over and over again. And if you actually look at it, that's probably why a lot of our transfers have been so poor, because we've had so many different managers, you know, over the last 10 years since Sir Alex Ferguson left. You know, you've had David Moyes, Van Gaal, Mourinho, Ollie, Ragnick for a bit, now Ten Hag. We've had 6 managers over the last 10 years. That's what, on average, about a manager lasts about a year and a half on average. And each of those managers have brought in players who all have different styles and different attributes and all the rest of it. And now we've just got a mixture of lots of different players who suit different styles, you know? Jose Mourinho was pragmatic, counter-attacking football. So was Ollie, really. And now we've got Eric Ten Hag, who wants to play this fast-flowing, possession-based football, which probably we haven't really played under any of these managers, to be honest. And we've got all these players that aren't really good at doing that, and he's trying to make them good into doing that. Whereas, you know, you think of Ajax. Ajax's philosophy has been to play the exact style of football that Erik ten Hag plays over the last 20, 30, 40 years. They've always played that same style of football. So from a young age, when they're bringing players through the youth academy at Ajax, they'll be training them from a very young age to play the style of football that Ajax is known for. But Manchester United aren't doing that. We don't have a philosophy. So I completely agree. And I think that we do need to weather the storm. If we want to start playing this, if we want to start playing this possession-based football and all the rest of it, we just have to weather the storm. We've got to, you know, bite our tongue and just hope that over the however many years we eventually get there. Benedict says Pep and Klopp will get sacked at Manchester United as well. Yeah, probably. I don't think any manager would succeed at Manchester United in its current form, personally. When I say succeed, I mean winning Premier Leagues, Champions Leagues. Yes, you might win the odd Europa League, the odd FA Cup here, if you get a favourable run to the finals. But I think generally we don't have the team or the mentality to win a 38-game season or to go far and win a Champions League for me. Let's have a look what people said. Al says, if Sir Jim Ratcliffe had all this money to improve the squad and fix the stadium, why is he only buying 25% of the club? Exactly. I mean, that sums it up, doesn't it? It sums it up because it's an investment. They know that it's a risky investment, and they know that buying 25% is far less risky than buying all of it for 6 billion, you know? Al says, Erik ten Hag is a double agent. He is purposely tanking the club to force the Glazers out. I mean, yeah, but and what if he forces the Glazers out and Sir Jim Ratcliffe comes, or he forces the Glazers in with Sir Jim Ratcliffe? I mean, that could be even worse, couldn't it? And if you're looking at it from a different perspective, if Manchester United were doing well on the pitch, right? If we were winning games, if we were high up in the Premier League, maybe, this is hypothetical, but maybe Sheikh Jassim would say, oh, I'll put in another bid. But if you're Sheikh Jassim, right, you've offered 5 billion, which is more than what the club's worth, and the club are literally probably at rock bottom, as far as I can remember in the last 10 years. I'd say we're at a lower point than when we were under Ollie. Probably, aren't we? At this moment in time, I'd say we are. Because even the games we've won, Burnley wasn't convincing. Wolves, the first game of the season, wasn't convincing. What other games have we won? Nottingham Forest, we could have easily lost that game. You know, we haven't really, other than the Crystal Palace 3-0, we haven't really had any convincing results out of about 10 games this season. If you're Sheikh Jassim watching those games, right, seeing all these stories about the dressing room turning toxic, seeing Jadon Sancho, seeing the Greenwood situation, the Anthony situation, all of these situations going on, are you really going to sit there and say, I'm going to offer more money for this club at this point? You would see, he knows, right, as a Manchester United fan, Sheikh Jassim, how much money and time and resources it's going to take to get Manchester United back to anywhere near a level of Man City. So I don't blame him. Like, if I was him and I had that type of money, I definitely would not be putting in more than £5 billion bids, you know? And the way that Sir Jim Ratcliffe has got around it is he's being very sneaky, because he's valuing the club at 6 billion, but he's only buying a quarter of it. Do you see what I mean? So he's not actually paying 6 billion. He's paying 1.5 billion for 25%. But then when the Glazers do the maths, they go, oh, well, that means he thinks it's worth 6 billion, which he doesn't really. He's just doing it in a sneaky way to get a piece of the pie. Yeah, and I see through it. I completely do. Let's see what else people are saying in the chat. I've got a couple minutes left of the show. Somebody says, if Sir Jim Ratcliffe wanted to buy shares in Barcelona for 1 billion, he doesn't care about Manchester United. He just wants to own a big football club. I 100% agree with you, mate. I do. I think it's all part of his ego, part of his legacy. As he said in an interview a couple of months ago, he said he's made all his money and now he wants to have a bit of fun. That was how he described buying Manchester United. You know, it's just another thing to go down the pub and say, oh, I own 25% of Manchester United. Oh, that's a good investment. Well done. You know, it's just that, isn't it? Whereas Sheikh Jassim, it's like, for me, looking from the outside perspective, it's a project to turn a club which was once great into a great club again with a blank checkbook. Some people might call that sports washing. Maybe it is. Maybe he is doing it to paint a more positive light on Qatar. I don't know. Possibly, who knows? Obviously, you have to have that conversation when you talk about those things. But you also could say that Sir Jim Ratcliffe, Ineos, is greenwashing. So there's all these different arguments to it. There's all these different, thoughts. Ricardo says, Kieran, we play Newcastle, Chelsea, Bournemouth, Bayern, Liverpool, West Ham, Villa, Forest. I think there's no way back to happy playground. Yeah, I mean, the results are going to get harder and harder. They really, really are. I don't want to scare people. But yeah, I'm going to wrap the video up here, guys. Please do make sure to smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel if you are new. We will, of course, have our match preview going up later today for the game against Brentford tomorrow. We will be doing a watch along for the game against Brentford as well. So if you are around tomorrow, do join us for that. Yeah, have a lovely day, a lovely morning, a lovely evening, and I'll speak to you all later.